To work with your white balance in Lightroom, it's pretty simple. Just head directly over to the develop module. So select an image and then click on develop. And you'll see that the white balance area of the panels over here to the right is under the basic header. If this is not opened, be sure to check the caret beside it and click it. And it's going to show you that panel that has all of the tone and presence settings as well as the white balance settings. And white balance is at the top because it's a pretty commonly used item when we go into post process with our images. There's 3 different things that you can utilize to affect the white balance in your image. All of them can lead to the same result. But there's basically 3 different ways to go at it. Just like everything in Adobe, there's a million ways to do one thing. In white balance, we're going to look at this little drop down menu here that basically has the same settings that your camera would have on it. And you can choose to correct your white balance in post by choosing any one of these selections. And as you choose them, you're going to watch and see these sliders move. And if I go up here into tungsten, it's going to make the image really cool. We're going to see those Kelvin numbers move all around. And we'll also see the tint number move as well. So if I go back to as shot, you can see this image had a temperature or a Kelvin of 4,600 and then a tint shift of 13. So this brings up an important point, that white balance is really composed of 2 different factors: color temperature, which is the temperature of the light that is coming onto your image, and also the tint, which is the correction for any color cast from that particular light source. So both of those factors make up white balance. All right, let's look at the 3rd way that you can do this. Obviously, you can pull your sliders as well. And anytime that you pull a slider in a certain direction and you want to change it back to where it was, all you have to do is click on the teardrop and it'll pop right back over to whatever was the setting that that image was imported on, which is what was recorded by your camera. All right, there is another way that we can work with white balance, and that is using this eyedropper. So I'm going to pop over here to a different image because I think this image really illustrates well how to use the eyedropper. Now, this is boring as all get out image of a cone with a letter on it. But as we can see, the white in that printed letter, the background of it is obviously not white. It has a really orange color cast to it. And actually, I can tell you from being in this arena that the ground is really super warm. So even though this is a slightly less than neutral Kelvin, so neutral Kelvin is 5,500, this image definitely has a warm color cast to it, and we need to correct for that. Now, I do need to caveat this by saying I shoot everything on auto white balance. White balance is not something I adjust in my camera. That's not to say that it's wrong to do that. You can adjust it in your camera all that you want. And if you shoot on RAW, it's not going to affect you being able to correct that or change it once you get in post. If you're shooting in JPEG, it has more of an effect on what you're going to be able to do once you get into post process. This is another big reason why most professional photographers do choose to shoot in RAW. It's because it gives us more data and more latitude to be able to make corrections later on. All right. With no further ado, how do you use this crazy eyedropper thing? So what you're doing is you are looking for basically a neutral color in your image. So somewhere 50% basically between the highlights and the darkest points of the image. And for me, that's probably in my eyeball is going to be somewhere right around this area. So if I click here, it's going to automatically set the white balance to where that is the neutral point in the image. So as you can tell, that really made a dramatic difference. And let me show you this side by side so that you can see. Now, having been in this arena, I can tell you the actual colors are very close with the human eye. The actual colors are very close to the image on the right. Now, if you didn't want to cool the image down that much, of course, you can come over here and you can pull this to be a little warmer. And as you can tell, I can warm it up quite a bit before I start to see this get a cast to it that would throw my eye off and say that that is not actually white. All right, so we've learned how to adjust the white balance by using a drop-down menu. We've learned to adjust it by using these two sliders, the two components of white balance with temperature and tint. And we've also learned how to use our eyedropper. There's one other thing I want to cover in this video, and that is the creative use of color temperature to be able to facilitate a creative effect in an image. Now, the image I'm going to show you is not completely, the one on the left, it was not completely done just using white balance alone. What it was is a combination of factors that I did to be able to edit the image to look like the one on the left. And I actually cropped this image super tight in because I didn't like the way my horse was standing. So I cropped down basically to the sun itself, but I wanted to show you the entire image. And I wanted to show you in this image how much temperature can come into your photography as a creative part of your images as well. So if we wanted to pull up the color warmth here, and I'm going to drop the black point down because it's going to make it make a lot more sense. Anytime you work with a silhouette, you're going to want to spend a lot of time over here with your black point because you want your foreground to for the most part, in a silhouette, you want your foreground to become completely blackened in. So a lot of the way I do that is adjusting my black point. But as you can see, this now has a creative effect that wouldn't necessarily be the same as if I corrected this image for the proper white balance. In other words, this is a creative shot, and I'm choosing to use white balance, especially color temperature, to affect how that image looks creatively. Now, this is just one little example that I played with. You can utilize this in a lot of different ways. Some photographers really like to have warmer images than their cameras shoot. Other photographers like to have cooler images than their cameras shoot. So it comes down to your choice, your style, and how you want to utilize this particular factor in your photography to create the images that you see in your mind when you look at a scene.